Today we are counting down if humans could survive the most terrifying planets ever found, ranked from the best survival odds to the absolute worst world where survival is still barely possible. At number 7, we have Proxima Centauri b. This is one of the most fascinating planets ever discovered, because it orbits the closest star to our sun. In cosmic terms, Proxima Centauri b is practically next door, but that does not mean it is friendly. The planet orbits a red dwarf star, and red dwarfs can be violent. They can release powerful flares, blasting nearby planets with radiation, and because Proxima b orbits very close to its star, there is a good chance it may be tidally locked. That means one side could always face the star while the other side sits in permanent darkness. So imagine a planet split into extremes. One side is endless alien daylight, the other is frozen night, and between them might be the only place humans could even try to live, a narrow twilight zone where temperatures could be less extreme. That is where survival begins. Humans would not build open cities on Proxima b, they would build buried settlements, protected under rock, ice, or artificial shielding. The surface would be treated like a dangerous work zone, not a home. Every trip outside would need radiation alerts, flare forecasting, emergency shelters, and suits built for an atmosphere we still do not fully understand. Power would be a challenge too. Solar panels could work, but relying only on the star would be risky because of flare activity. So a real human colony would probably depend on nuclear reactors, underground farms, closed-loop water recycling, and heavily shielded communication towers. The best case scenario is that Proxima b has an atmosphere thick enough to move heat around the planet. If it does, the Twilight Zone could become a strange but survivable place. If it does not, humans would be living inside bunkers on a hostile rock under a violent red sun. Proxima b is terrifying because it is close enough to feel possible, but possible does not mean safe. Number 6 is TRAPPIST-1e. TRAPPIST-1e is one of those planets that sounds hopeful when you first hear about it. It is rocky, it is close to Earth size, it sits in the habitable zone of its star, which means liquid water could exist there if the conditions are right. But that one word, if, changes everything. TRAPPIST-1e orbits a small red dwarf star, and like Proxima b, it sits very close to its parent star. That means it may also be tidally locked, with one side facing the star forever and the other trapped in permanent night. And red dwarf stars can be active, especially when it comes to radiation and flares. So TRAPPIST-1e could be one of the best candidates for future habitability, or it could be a stripped, airless, frozen, and burned wasteland. The survival strategy would depend completely on whether the planet has an atmosphere. If it has one, humans would search for the most stable region, probably near the boundary between day and night. That zone could have moderate temperatures compared to the permanent day side and the permanent night side. A colony might be built into hillsides, caves, or underground tunnels using the planet itself as protection. And if there is water ice, that becomes the most important resource. Water means drinking supply, oxygen production, fuel production, and agriculture. A human base would need to mine ice, purify it, split it into hydrogen and oxygen, and recycle it endlessly. But if TRAPPIST-1e has no protective atmosphere, survival gets much harder. Then humans are not really colonizing a planet. They are building a sealed space station that happens to be sitting on rock. The surface would be bombarded by radiation. The sky might be black. Temperatures could swing depending on location, and the colony would have to create everything itself: air, heat, pressure, food, water management, radiation shielding, and emergency backup systems. Still, compared to the planets later in this list, TRAPPIST-1e gives humans something valuable. A possible surface, a possible climate, a possible future, and that is why it ranks higher in survival odds. It is terrifying, but not hopeless. Number 5 is Kepler 452b. Kepler 452b has often been described as an Earth-like world, sometimes even called Earth's older cousin, but that nickname can be misleading. Because from far away, a planet can look promising. It can orbit in the right zone. It can circle a sun-like star. It can be the right general size. But when humans actually arrive, the reality could be completely different. Kepler 452b is larger than Earth. That means it may have stronger gravity, it may have a thicker atmosphere, it may have more intense surface pressure, and because its star is older and brighter than the sun, the planet may have received more energy over time. So one possibility is that Kepler 452b is a rocky super Earth with oceans, clouds, mountains, and a climate humans could adapt to with technology. The other possibility is much darker. It could be a super Venus, a world that once had better conditions, but slowly overheated as its star aged. Its oceans could have evaporated, its atmosphere could have thickened, its surface could be hot, pressurized, and hostile. So how would humans survive? First, they would need to measure gravity. If the gravity is only a little higher than Earth's, humans could adapt. But if it is much stronger, long-term life becomes extremely difficult. Hearts would work harder, bones and joints would suffer, construction would require stronger materials, launching rockets back into space would be much harder. If the surface is too hot or the air too thick, humans might avoid lowlands and build at higher elevations, assuming mountains exist. If the atmosphere is toxic but not crushing, sealed cities could be built with external cooling systems and pressure barriers. The ideal colony would be placed in the coolest stable region, possibly near the poles or at high altitude. It would rely on domed habitats, underground shelters, filtered intake systems, and farming chambers isolated from the outside environment. Kepler 452b is scary because it represents the danger of assumptions. From Earth, it sounds like a second home, but up close, it might be a heavier, hotter, older planet that reminds humans that Earth-like does not mean Earth. Now, number 4 is K218b. K218b is one of the strangest and most exciting worlds on this list because it might not be a rocky planet like Earth at all. It is larger and more massive than our planet, and scientists have detected carbon-bearing molecules in its atmosphere. Some have suggested it could be a Hycean world, meaning a planet with a hydrogen-rich atmosphere and possibly a deep global ocean underneath. That sounds almost beautiful. A huge alien ocean, a thick atmosphere, chemistry that might even make people wonder about life. But for human survival, K218b could be a nightmare. The problem is size and pressure. If K2-18b has a deep atmosphere, descending through it could be deadly. Pressure would increase, temperature could rise, winds could become dangerous. And if there is an ocean far below, it may be buried beneath layers of atmosphere that humans cannot easily cross. There may not be a solid surface at all, or if there is one, it could be hidden under a massive ocean and crushing atmospheric pressure. So humans would survive K2-18b by staying high. A future colony might exist in floating platforms in the upper atmosphere, similar to the floating city idea people discuss for Venus. These habitats would need to float at the altitude where pressure and temperature are closest to what technology can handle. But even that would be extremely difficult. Hydrogen is tricky, it leaks through materials, it can be dangerous. The atmosphere's chemistry could corrode equipment, storm systems could push habitats out of stable zones. And because the planet is far from Earth, every repair, every spare part, every failure would matter. Humans might use giant aerostat cities, robotic drones, and automated mining probes that dive deeper than humans ever could. The colony would be less like a city and more like a fleet of floating research stations, constantly adjusting altitude to stay alive. K218b is terrifying because it might be one of the most scientifically important planets we know, while also being a place humans can never truly touch. Number 3 is 55 Cancri A. This is where survival starts to feel almost ridiculous. 55 Cancri A is a super Earth orbiting extremely close to its star. A year on this planet is shorter than a day on Earth. It receives intense heat, and many models suggest it could have lava flows, molten regions, or extreme volcanic conditions. This is not a desert planet. This is not a storm planet. This is a world where the ground itself may be melting. If 55 Cancri A is tidally locked, one side could be permanently blasted by the star, while the other side is cooler but still incredibly hostile. The day side may be a glowing furnace. The surface could be covered in molten rock. The atmosphere, if it exists, could be filled with vaporized minerals. So how could humans survive? They probably could not build directly on the surface, at least not in the normal sense. A base would need to be placed in the least hostile region, possibly the night side, the Terminator zone, or a high altitude area if any stable crust exists there. The habitat would need extreme cooling systems, reflective shielding, heat-resistant materials, and foundations that can handle unstable ground. It would need to be sealed against toxic gases, mineral vapor, volcanic activity, and heat waves. More realistically, humans would live in orbit. An orbital station could study the planet, send down robotic probes, and maybe harvest materials from the upper atmosphere or from cooled regions. Robots would do the surface work. Humans would stay behind radiation shields, heat shields, and layers of backup systems. If a surface base existed, it would be one of the most dangerous human structures ever built. It would not look like a colony. It would look like a bunker designed to survive inside an oven. The main rule on 55 Cancri A would be simple: never trust the ground, because on this planet the ground might not stay solid. Number 2 is HD 189733b. HD 189733b is one of the most terrifying planets ever discovered because it looks beautiful from far away. It is blue, and that color makes people think of Earth, oceans, skies, water, life. But HD 189733b is not blue because it is peaceful. It is blue because of the way light interacts with particles in its atmosphere. This is a hot Jupiter, a gas giant orbiting very close to its star. It has extreme heat, violent winds, and atmospheric conditions that make Earth's worst storms look harmless. One of the most famous descriptions of this planet is that it may have glass rain, not soft rain, not water, but silicate particles in the atmosphere blown sideways by winds moving at insane speeds. There is no solid surface where humans could build a city. There is no ocean to float on. There is no calm valley or safe mountain. The entire planet is atmosphere, pressure, heat, motion, and violence. So survival would be almost entirely artificial, and humans would need floating stations, but not like gentle balloons. These would be armored atmospheric submarines designed to float at a specific pressure level. Too high, and radiation and heat become worse. Too low, and the pressure becomes crushing. The habitat would need to survive constant wind shear, abrasive particles, lightning, chemical reactions, and temperature extremes. The outside would be repaired by robots, because no human could simply step outside and fix a panel. Power might come from atmospheric turbines, nuclear reactors, or energy drawn from temperature differences in the atmosphere. But every system would need backups, because one failure could send the colony sinking into deeper pressure layers until it was destroyed. HD 189733b is terrifying because there is no stable place to belong. On rocky planets, at least you can hide underground. Here there is only sky, and the sky is trying to tear you apart. Number 1 is KELT 9b. This is the worst planet on the list where survival is still barely possible. KELT 9b is an ultra-hot Jupiter. It orbits a star so hot and bright that the planet's dayside reaches temperatures hotter than some stars. Molecules in its atmosphere can be torn apart by the heat, only to recombine on the cooler night side. That sentence alone tells you how extreme this world is. This is not weather as humans understand it. This is chemistry being broken by starlight. KELT 9b has no surface. It is a gas giant, swollen by radiation, orbiting dangerously close to a star that is blasting it with energy. The planet is not just hot, it is being cooked, stretched, and stripped. So how could humans survive? They would not land. They would not float casually in the atmosphere. The only possible survival plan is to build an orbital fortress near the planet, far enough away to avoid the worst radiation and heat, but close enough to study it. This would be less like a colony, and more like a heavily shielded space station operating near one of the most hostile environments imaginable. The station would need active cooling at all times. It would need thick radiation shielding, magnetic protection, emergency propulsion, and robotic systems capable of repairing the outside without exposing humans. Every window would need protection. Every external antenna would need shielding. Every mission toward the planet would be robotic. The people inside would live in a small artificial Earth surrounded by machines, while outside, the planet glows under the attack of its own star. And yet, survival is still technically possible because humans would not be trying to conquer KELT 9b, they would be surviving near it. That is the key difference. Some planets can be settled. Some can only be studied, and KELT 9b is the kind of planet that reminds us that not every world in the universe is waiting for footsteps. Some worlds are warnings, and that is what makes this countdown so fascinating. The most terrifying planets ever found are not just scary because they are far away or strange. They are scary because they force humans to rethink what survival even means. On Proxima b, survival means hiding from a violent red star. On TRAPPIST-1e, it means betting everything on whether an atmosphere survived. On Kepler 452b, it means discovering whether an Earth-like world has secretly become a nightmare. On K218b, it means floating above a possible alien ocean you may never reach. On 55 Cancri E, it means staying above or beside a world of molten rock. On HD 189733b, it means surviving inside a storm with glass in the wind. And on KELT 9b, it means building a fortress near a planet so hot it barely feels real. So maybe the real answer is this. Humans could survive the most terrifying planets ever found, but only by bringing Earth with them, not the whole planet, just a tiny version of it. A room with air, a wall against radiation, a machine that makes water drinkable again, a farm under artificial lights, a shield between human skin and a universe that does not care if we survive. Because space is not designed for us. But if there is one thing humans have always done, it is look at impossible places and ask one question: how do we stay alive there?